Welcome to Pipeline Profits, where we dive deep on everything sales and marketing, specifically when it comes to the real estate market. But both me, Ryan Wykes, and my co-host, Emma Pace, are obsessed with all things sales and marketing. Today, we don't have a guest, but we've got something special for you guys that we put together. It seems like the whole world is obsessed with this topic. Definitely realtors are obsessed with this topic. Emma, what are we going to talk to everybody about today?
We're talking about AI. We're talking about one of my favorite pastimes as of the last. I've been using it for a while now, actually. I think we started at the end of or beginning of 2022.
Yeah, you've been obsessed since like day one. And you've always thought of innovative and creative ways to leverage AI to make the day-to-day job as a realtor easier, and even more so as of running a business easier. So, obviously almost everybody's jumped on the bandwagon of like leveraging AI to write your listing descriptions or do some basic marketing things for you to make your job a little bit easier. But today, what we're going to discuss with you guys is we're going to give you 5 ways you can leverage AI today in your business to buy time back, right? And what do we all want? We want to make more money in less time. And that's the beautiful thing that AI can do for us.
Yeah, the interesting part is it's funny because you're like, I think everybody's jumped on the bandwagon, but like I've done several recent talks about this recently, and I always do a vote because I want to get a better understanding of like the room that I'm talking to. And so I'll always ask, specifically we'll talk about ChatGPT first. Obviously there's a million other tools out there, but ChatGPT is kind of like the brush broad stroke tool that most people are familiar with, that's been most widely adopted. And everybody's like, I'll say, who's used ChatGPT? And then you get kind of like the half-assed hands, like, they're like kind of half up like this. And
like, I got to log in.
Yes, I think that's kind of, like most agents specifically have kind of stopped there. Like they logged in, they thought it was cool, they heard about it, and they're like, they mess around with one kind of crappy prompt and they go, this thing doesn't work. And then they log out. And so the joke that I like to make is like, it's you. It's like, oh, it's not you, it's me when we break up. Like, no, it's with AI. If you broke up with AI, I'm telling you right now, it's you. There is no it's you, it's me. Or it's not you, it's me. It's always you when it comes to AI, absolutely. And it's because people don't like to take the time to learn a new tool. And it seems so high tech and it seems like so futuristic. But one of the ways that I really like to describe this was like, when we were younger and we had that old dial-up, dial tone internet or whatever.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh my gosh, like my parents can't even start this. Like they don't know anything about the computer. I got to teach them all sorts of shit. Right. And I'm like, okay, that was like for me, we'll say 2003. And I was like, oh my God, my parents don't know how to use a computer. Now, fast forward the clock by 20 years, the year is 2023. We have kids, or our generation has kids, and our kids are like, oh my God, my parents don't know how to use AI. Like we've just completely flipped the script. So if you were one of those kids where 20 or 30 years ago, you were like, oh my God, my parents don't know how to use computer, please understand that if you are not taking a little bit of time to learn AI, you are your parents 20 years.
Yeah. And here's the biggest thing is like, you see all these articles like, is AI going to replace us in the workplace? And, are we all going to lose our job? But I think AI is just like a new iteration of every other technology, right? Like first they were like, is robotics going to, replace the line worker in factories? And it had to some extent, but now the people that get paid the most in factories are the ones that know how to operate or fix those robots, right? Yeah. That know how to interact and use those robots. And then it's the same with the internet. Everyone was like, oh, is the internet going to replace how everything? And it didn't. It just made our lives easier and better. Yeah. And for a period of time, the people who were making the most money were the people that knew how to leverage that the best. And then, it was it's just been the same over again and over again and over again. And I think this is just another iteration of, hey, we've got something new that's going to make our lives easier. It's going to give us our time back, which is what we all want. And it's actually for those who learn it, it's going to give them the ability to make more money than they've ever made before in new ways.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't be afraid of it. I would find someone who understands it more than you do, like Emma, and learn from them, right? Like that's what I love about our relationship is I honestly wouldn't know anything about AI if it wasn't for you forcing me to learn.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just beating down your door every day with like new ways to use it. But I mean, the thing is, the reason why it's so important to me is not even that I'm like, I think you guys look at me as like a techie. I don't look at myself. I think in comparison to a techie person, I'm very non-techie. But I think in comparison to like the average real estate agent, I look like a tech nerd or something, which isn't the case at all. But I'll tell you why I'm so obsessed with this basically at this point in time is because when I first started in real estate, I kept watching these videos because I'm like an avid nerd, like I love new shit, and everyone was saying like this concept of leverage. I'm like reading these books, I keep seeing this word, I'm like, what does it mean, and how do I get me some of that? Like I don't understand how I gain leverage, and it was like, you could do people, tools, systems, money, right? And to me, it was so difficult at the beginning of my career to grasp this concept of leverage or gaining leverage in my business. And I have never seen any type of opportunity nearly as close to AI with like leveling the playing field from new agent to vet agent in such a short period of time of being able to grow your business. And so I know I use it a lot, obviously, as a real estate agent, but more importantly, as a real estate agent, we are business owners. And like, I'm trying to look at every single angle of like, how can we implement this in the best possible way to help us be fantastic at our jobs and gain leverage so that we have more time to either reinvest in the business, or if you don't want to do that and you want to go the opposite route, spend more time with your family. But ultimately, how do we gain leverage to get a little bit more time back?
Yeah. So like, stop making us wait. What are the 5 ways that Emma Pace is leveraging AI in her real estate business right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you had already talked about like the marketing on the front end of it. And I know it seems very basic, but I want to start there because I think this is where most people can kind of meet me on the same level. Like they actually have some type of understanding of like, yeah, this thing can write your listing descriptions. This thing can write your emails for you. But it's like, how do you actually get it to write something that isn't garbage? It ultimately is what it is. Because I think a lot of people have used it and they're like, cool, you tell me that it'll write these listing descriptions, but the listing descriptions are subpar in comparison to what I could do myself. And so the first thing that I want to just talk about quickly for those of you who are brand new to AI is something called prompting. So prompting are the words that you use to get the output from the tool, right? And so he or she who has the best questions or the best prompts wins with AI. And so if you're like, I'm trying to get the thing to write my listing descriptions for me, but they're not very good, again, you need to go back and look at what did I feed the thing to get the output. And so I think writing ads, writing emails, writing listing descriptions on the marketing side of things is one of the first things that I wanted to discuss. Because lots of people will always ask us, can you give me your drip campaigns? Show me your ads, all this stuff. And it's like, okay, well, you actually have a tool right beside you all day long, 24/7 that can help you build these things. So instead of just asking somebody else for theirs because it might not resonate with like your tone of voice or your audience, like if I specifically deal with investors and you take my drip campaign and you work with first time buyers, it's not going to work for you. It seems easy because you're taking my emails, but at the end of the day, they're not going to serve you any purpose. So you need to learn how to use the tool to be able to get the output that you want. So that would be the first thing. I think marketing is a pretty broad brushstroke that like most agents can use AI immediately. Like to me, there is no excuse for you not to have a drip. There is no excuse for you not to have a, quote unquote marketing assistant. Spend a little bit of time figuring out what the prompts are and you can reuse those. Okay. That was kind of the second hack that I wanted to get to was like, when you find something that works really well, save it, create a Word document and save your prompts. Like, and this was a problem that I had at the beginning was I would find these, like I would get this kick-ass output and then I would just not save my prompts. and I'd go back and be like, how did I get it to do that thing last time? And so my second little hack for you is, if you spend a little bit of time creating a prompt, build yourself like a prompt library, right? It could be something as simple as a Word document that you keep, so that you can say, every time I want to go write a listing description, I don't have to figure out what the prompt is. I create the prompt once, I save it in my prompt library, and now I know I can go back to the library and pull that prompt and use it again and again and again and again. And it's like, you don't have to change that ever. So that is my second hack that I wanted to put out there, because I think too many people go through recreating the same prompt that already worked for them.
Yeah, I think people do that. That just goes back to creating good SOPs, because I think, people in business and just in life itself recreate the same tasks over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right. And you can simplify a lot of your life if you just track what you do and create SOPs around it. Right. Like,
totally.
I just think of like basic little things that started doing this for us, is like bookmarking in your web browser, right? Instead of having to remember, oh, what was that website, and typing it in. It's the exact same thing. It's like, I want to do this thing. Where do I go get the command?
Yeah.
That is then going to create it for me and have it work. And I think that's a really good point. And I think it's something that, for the listeners, this is an AI tip, but this is a life tip.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think we oftentimes do, we do the repetitive tasks way too. And I don't want to get into automations too much. We can do a whole nother conversation on automations, but we do way too many of the repetitive tasks that are unnecessary, just because we're like, whatever, I have the time to do it. But it's like, well, if you spent, I'll give you a good example. Like we do calendar training in SalesGenius. This isn't a plug or anything like that, but this is just a good example. So how many people come to us and they don't have their calendar set up, like an automated calendar? So they constantly have to go back and forth with their clients, like, hey, whatever, setting an appointment Thursday at 7. No, Thursday at 7 doesn't work for me. How about Saturday at 10? Oh, actually, I can't do Saturday at 10. And it's like, me and you go back for 15 minutes back and forth about what time's going. And then I got to go and manually send you a Zoom link if we're doing it on Zoom. And then I've got to send you 3 or 4 texts to follow up with you. And I've got to send you a bunch of emails. And it's like, you know how long that takes? That probably takes me an hour to an hour and a half to get on an appointment with you for Saturday. Instead of sitting down for 30 minutes and building the thing once. Yes, it's uncomfortable. And the biggest challenge about this entire thing is being able to sit down start to finish and finish them, instead of getting 95% of the way there and being like, screw it, I'll just do it myself, right? But if you finish that once, like setting up your Calendly or setting up an automated calendar, you never have to do that work again. So it's like investing 30 minutes to buy back 30 minutes or an hour on every single appointment that you set for the future. And AI is like the exact same thing as that. Learning how to do it takes a little bit of time, but to me, it is arguably the highest leverage skill that you can have in your business. And the other thing I wanted to mention for any of our listeners, one of my favorite tools, I'm like harping on Ryan to get on this tool every single day. Mem. It's called mem.ai. And it's essentially a note-taking, right? Like it's very similar to your notes on your phone. But the cool thing about it is that it has an AI search functionality. So for me, I'm always taking all these notes at like conferences, or I have just ideas that I'm thinking of. And I'm like, oh shit, I know I have that note somewhere, or like I have it on a Google Drive somewhere or a Google Doc, but how am I going to go back and find it? And then it takes you half an hour to go back and find it. With Mem, you can just type in, Ryan mentioned this thing at this conference, find me the note, and it'll pull up the note from that conference and highlight Ryan said blah, 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 right? So it saves me so much time in terms of going back through my notes and trying to find, little tidbits or hacks or whatever that I wrote down for myself. So I absolutely love that tool. I use it every single day. I pretty much have it open on my desktop all day. And then it also has an app on your phone. So it's like, if you're just on the go and you want to make a couple quick notes, it's perfect because I can go back to the search functionality later. So that one is mem.ai for those of you listening or watching that haven't heard of it before. I absolutely love that tool. It's one of my favorites.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I was going to say, where are we at? We're at 2, I think, right now.
Yeah, we're at 2.
Mem is basically the third one. The fourth hack, this one is a sales one. This one's super cool. So we're very adamant on any of our clients or our team recording their calls, because we do game tape and we listen back and do all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
One of the biggest challenges that we see with agents is that they don't take notes. And they don't, if they do take notes, like, they're brutal, right? So what happens is
brutal's a nice way to put it.
yeah. So what happens is, let's say you and I talked at the beginning of this year, Ryan, and you said, "Hey, you know what? I'm actually thinking I'm going to buy at the beginning of next year." So I have a 12-month window, and I make a note and I say, "Okay, well, I'm going to follow up with you in October." Are you going to remember, like, as the agent, what the heck we talked about in January when I call you back in October?
Right.
There's no chance. So if your calls are recorded, the cool thing is that you can download those calls and take the transcription of the call and upload them into something like ChatGPT and say, "Hey, summarize what we talked about in this last call, and what information did I not gather that I should get in the next call that would have been relevant?" And ChatGPT will say, "Hey, you talked to Ryan for whatever, 25 minutes, and you talked about this, you talked about his family, you talked about his move from last time, but you didn't get his motivation, his ability, his will. And you're going to need those things on this next call," right? So that is a massive hack for those of you guys that are like, "Oh my gosh, like, I know that I had a really good conversation with this person, but I completely forget what the conversation was, and I don't have half an hour to go back and listen to the call." Download your call, transcribe it, upload it into ChatGPT. I think you can actually upload audio files. They just did a bunch of updates. Upload that, transcribe it, and it'll say, you know, these are all the talking points that you guys talked about last call. This is where I would suggest that you go with taking the next call.
Super smart.
Amazing hack, and nobody does that. Like, nobody looks at it that way, right?
Yeah.
So that was 4.
Yep.
And then I guess 4B, I'm giving like away all the secrets.
You're giving all the good stuff right now for free.
I know, it's crazy. I'm just feeling generous today. 4B is obviously having a note. And I think a lot of people are familiar with like an AI note taker, but nobody, I don't know, like, I'll be on calls with people and they just don't run their note taker. And I just think it's so unusual because one of the most effective things that we will do is when we have a team meeting at the end, I'll give you guys one that we've used. Google Meet. Super safe. There we go. I think I'm back now.
Okay, yeah, I was just messaging you. You're super choppy there for a second.
Was I? Okay, I'm back now. Sorry about that. I think my internet went out there for a second. Nonetheless, supernormal.ai is amazing because at the end of our conversations, I can say, Rebecca in this conversation said that she was going to do this. Emma said that she was going to do this. And Ryan said that he was going to do this. Because there's way too many meetings that happen where it's like all these great ideas are like, you have all these great ideas and they're recorded. Nobody freaking goes back through the meeting recordings. Like, let's be honest. Nobody's watching an hour team meeting app. So just by stating at the end of the meeting what everybody's objective was, by having that transcription, you can go into the note taker and just look at the last 3 or 4 lines to say, these were the next steps, or these were everybody's objectives. Did we actually get to those, or did we not? But if you don't recap that at the end of it, I mean, in theory, you could go and upload the transcription and say, what did everybody say they were going to do? But the easiest way is just to have a workflow to say, and during this call, so-and-so said they were going to do X, Y, and Z, and so-and-so said this. And then every time you go into your note taker, you just scroll to the bottom and you know what the objective of that call was or what the next steps were. That's
so good. I mean, a note taker for online meetings was the first way I used AI before I even knew what ChatGPT was. And it was such a good hack because sometimes you're in meetings and so much gets covered and you're just clueless at the end of like, okay, what was my best takeaway there? Right.
Yeah. Or and the other thing too about
your action,
it's cool. Like, sometimes we have great content that comes out of our meetings. Like, it'll just be, you know, we're obviously recording the podcast right now when we do our Wednesday stuff in the Facebook group, and like, we produce a lot of content. But sometimes the best content, you're like, holy crap, like, this was an amazing conversation. We should actually take this and like reproduce this. And you're able to do that through, you know, with a note taker, you can go back through and kind of highlight what you guys had talked about previously. Should we go with number 5?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, so number 5 that I want to give you guys are just the tools that because everybody wants it. And so I think, you know, I've given you guys a lot of tactical stuff already today, but I want to just give you let's go with 3 tools that we use pretty much every day. I already gave you Mem, so we'll count Mem as one. The second one is OpusClip. So for those of you guys that are making a bunch of videos and you want to have, for lack of a better term, like a Hermosi style reel on Instagram, this thing, you can upload a long form piece of content into it. Let's say like an hour, you and I could upload the hour podcast into it, and it would give us 10 shorts with subtitles automatically created by AI. So that one is amazing. Use it regularly to identify great areas within the podcast or longer form trainings that we use. So repurposing your long form content into reels. That one is OpusClip. The first AI tool that I ever used, even before ChatGPT. I don't use it anymore because I know how to use ChatGPT. But if you are somebody who isn't tech savvy with AI but you want the benefits of it, this is the one tool that I would actually pay. It's a decent amount of money. I think it's almost like $100 a month, but it's Jasper.ai. And it is incredible for marketing. And so right now, that was the first tool I used because I knew nothing about prompting and I knew nothing about how to actually use ChatGPT. Jasper is a bunch of pre-built prompts that have been tested. So it's like Facebook ads, YouTube video script generators, listing descriptions. All of those things are already in there, and you're just plugging and playing, and it's giving you the output. So you're paying them essentially whatever it is, $100 a month for their prompts. But it is an amazing tool. And if you're somebody that's listening today and you're like, I wish that I had an assistant. I wish I had an assistant to do all that. Then the question I would ask you is, are you willing to spend $50 or $100 a month for an assistant? And if the answer is no, we should have a totally different podcast for people that answer no to that. But that one there is amazing. So I would say those are kind of like the three tools today that anybody could use to implement in their business. Opus, Jasper, and Mem. I think those are three amazing tools that any agent could take, implement in their business right away, and be off to the races. And actually use the tools instead of just paying for something and letting it kind of collect dust in the on the digital shelf.
Are there any? Because I've heard of some people using this. Are there any tools that you currently use for like animation or anything like that, or are they not quite hitting the mark yet? I'm just curious.
I don't particularly do like animations with them, but I would use like Dolly or Midjourney for like image creation.
Okay.
So, but I don't necessarily do a lot of animations. There are a couple of them. I'm trying to think what the one is called. I think it's called Pictory, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, I haven't messed around with it too much. In terms of image generation, Dolly and Midjourney would be the two that I've used most frequently. Stable Diffusion is another one that does images, but like they're pretty good. Again, cool. It comes down to the prompts. But if you want,
because I tried, but I don't think my prompts were good enough.
No, I mean, like, people will do image generation and be like, what the hell is, like, this doesn't look like a real person. But I've seen some really amazing ones, and like it's moving so fast. Like, I've never seen technology move. It's every day. Every day it's 10 times better than it was the day before. And so image generation for, humans, I would be very hard pressed. If someone gave you a real image of someone and someone that was generated by AI with someone who's prompted well in like Midjourney, I would be very hard pressed if you could tell the difference of who is real and who was created via AI.
Cool. All right. So can we just give the guys a quick recap of the 5 best ways to use AI in their business right now?
Yeah. So we talked about marketing as number 1. So writing ads, emails, listing descriptions. The second thing that we talked about was note taking with Mem. So using the note taker so that you have a search functionality to actually go back and search your repository of notes. Instead of you having to go find it, you can just type in the AI search bar and they'll go find it for you. Then we talked about sales. So we talked about transcribing your previous sales calls, especially if you don't have notes in your CRM. Going back and transcribing the calls that you had with, old prospects or old clients to make sure that you're picking up from where you left off. And then we talked about the tools that I love. And the tools that I love are OpusClip, Jasper, and mem.ai for note taking.
Amazing. Well, this was awesome. As usual, when it comes to AI, I feel like fully educated and like I'm ready to take on the world. Yeah. Let's see how good I get at the prompts, because I definitely notice a difference. And as I spend time in there, I get better and better, right? You learn how it works. And I think the big thing is learning how it works for you so that whatever the output is like somewhat genuinely yours, right? And that's the biggest thing that I notice the difference is like, maybe I'll take a prompt you give me, or like I'll get a prompt from somewhere else, someone who's a professional prompt builder, and the output right away isn't like exactly me. So you can put twists on it, like of people that you think influence you, or books that have influenced what you want to say. And I think that's like a great tip for everyone.
Yeah.
Is like, even if you're buying prompts or finding someone that can create prompts for you, figure out a way to make those prompts more you, and you'll get way better output.
Yeah.
Well, that was awesome, Emma. I think everybody's like feeling way smarter and more robotic.
I hope so.
Yeah, guys. So if you have any questions, DM us directly, reach out at any time. We're always here to help.
Also, for any of you guys that want, we actually do have an AI tool that I made.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, you guys can just have it. It's free. Just go to the website there and you can get access to it. But essentially, the reason why I made this was for a very particular purpose. And it's because we do a lot of call training. And what happens is sometimes when you're in a workflow, like let's say you have a list of 50 people that you need to call, you get to call 10, you have an amazing conversation. Like I have an amazing conversation with Ryan. As soon as I hang up, I have this analysis paralysis where I go, should I send the recap email to Ryan right now? Or should I continue on my calls for the next 40 people and I'll do all of my email recaps at the end of the day? And you're like, I don't know what I should do. I don't want to break my call flow, but I also don't want to forget to follow up with Ryan. And so like, I've been there way too many times where you just finish the calls and then you have like 10 emails that you need to send and you're like, I'm not sending. And you're like,
100%.
Okay, I burned that lead, right? So ultimately what this tool did was it helped to shorten that time frame. So it actually will just write the email recap for you after. So you put in like, Ryan, the topic of your discussion, you find an article that you want to send Ryan to follow up on based on what your discussion was. And then you say when you're going to follow up with him again. So like, let's say 2 weeks. So it would say, Ryan, down payments. I find an article on like, minimum requirements for down payments. And I say I'm going to follow up in 2 weeks. And it just writes the email for you so you can copy and paste it and send it. So there is never an issue of you breaking your flow state with calls or forgetting to follow up with people. So if you want it, just go get it. It's there for you guys for free if you want it. And I hope my only ask is like, I hope you use it and I hope it does well for you guys. Amazing.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, we will see you next week where we have an awesome guest. A real estate influencer from Toronto. You don't want to miss it. Next Tuesday, November 14th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We will be live. You can Q&A after if you are in the Facebook group. So November 14th, 12:30 p.m. Big real estate influencer from the Toronto area who's always full of controversy. So you don't want to miss it.
For sure. We'll see you guys next week.